Hey there, welcome back to High Infidelity, the best channel for cheating stories. Like and subscribe to channel for more spicy stories. Now, let's get into today's story video. What my wife's done to me. I honestly never imagined to be in this situation in my life. My wife accomplished the inconceivable. I discovered a messaging thread on her phone in 2014, a year after we began dating, in which she had shared photos. She informed me that her phone had been hacked and that she needed assistance. I didn't believe it at first, but I convinced myself that I did and kept on. We married in October of this year after having our first kid together in 2016. In 2019, we will welcome a second child and finish the home purchase. At the time, my life seemed to be going well. It's repetitive and tiresome, but it's also amazing. I got a vasectomy this year. After a few weeks, I noticed a shift in my bedroom preferences. We spoke about a few topics before she showed me a text exchange she was having with one of my closest friends. Several components were clearly missing, so I inquired as to why, and she firmly refused to offer an explanation. I had access to her text message history for the previous 3 months, and I discovered hundreds of communications between them. We fought over it for 10 days until I informed her that I wanted her deleted communications restored by a professional data recovery business. She acknowledged, after a short denial, that she'd been with him for over 4 months, commencing immediately after I had the vasectomy. They had been exchanging images and phone calls, she said, and he had pushed her to purchase a wireless vibrator that he could use on her remotely through the internet. When she saw I was still looking for her phone messages, she confessed to having relations with a previous coworker, which I uncovered a few days later. She claimed to have committed the deed earlier this year. 3 days later, she calls to inform me that the story has been expanded. She claims she didn't have with that employee this year, but rather in 2019, and that she only saw him once for a haircut. I was taken aback when she informed me she'd been spending an unspecified amount of time with her closest buddy. She has some memory problems from a medical condition. I believe she maintains that it started before we were married, maybe even before our first kid was born to her. She then told me about another man she had brought into our home with the intention of building a relationship with 2 months before, but had failed to follow through on the connection. The next year, she notified me that she had been with another of my friends, and the following year she finally admitted to having been with another of my friends in 2014. It was determined that the data recovery attempt on her phone had been unsuccessful. It was interesting to discover what she had been up to recently after looking through her Facebook chat history, Google location history, and other digital data. After more investigation, I discovered she was dating someone else, a female she had completely forgotten about. I'm concerned that she hasn't thoroughly investigated all of the alternatives. I also came upon a deluge of troubling chronological data, which I made a point of documenting. She had an affair with a colleague on the morning of my 30th birthday celebration, which was the day before my party, when she was 36 weeks pregnant, and she was 36 weeks pregnant at the time of the affair. Around 10 days before our wedding, she taped one of her most intimate talks with her closest friend on her cell phone, and I unfortunately found it. That image will never leave my brain. A few weeks later, we had another one, which was just 5 weeks after our wedding. When the BJ encounter happened, the couple had just been married for 6 weeks at the time. During one of my birthday celebrations, I shared a Wi-Fi vibrator with a friend, which was shortly followed by SMS birthday greetings from each of them within minutes. I'm completely at a loss on what to do. Since there is no other option available, we have sought the advice of a marriage therapist in an attempt to get beyond this. However, it is so severe that I am concerned that I will not be able to overcome it. Understand that there is a lot more to it than just leaving before you respond in this manner. If it were still 2014, I'd agree with you. There are, however, children, marital assets, and 8 years of memories to take into consideration as well. Thank you so much for taking the time to read about my life. Your zealousness is inspiring. Story 2. I must divorce my wife. She keeps cheating. I can forgive, but I cannot continue. We've been married for more than a decade. I'm in my early 40s and have no children. For the most part, I was at school and working terrible jobs, but in my last year, I landed a fantastic job in a nice town, and we transferred. It was supposed to be the time in life when things started to get better. Before we went, she had almost an affair with a guy from her company. She told me about it for some reason, about how she was attracted to him, about how he had his own business and so on. She had pondered leaving me before. She was hoping for a sign from God. Something wasn't right since she was being quite cold to me. He refused to hug or smile at me. That's when she told me that God would decide whether or not she should marry this other guy. So this hurt my heart, since I thought our friendship was indestructible. I needed her more than anything else right now, yet she seemed distant. So after a week, which had been the worst week of my life up to that point, she came to me in tears and said something about God being terribly terrible or something, and she said she wanted to stay with me. At this point, it became clear to me that she was just making up theology as she went along. She also suffers from bipolar disorder. You may be wondering what all the talk about God is about. We're both Christians, but she goes a bit crazy with it, and I just try not to make stupid decisions as a result of it. She often asks me what God is doing or why he did something, and I try to explain that she doesn't know for sure that God did the item in question, that she's skipping logical phases and so on. So this is when I started to have doubts about us. When I realized she was willing to cheat, I wondered whether I should continue. I consented to continue since she didn't cheat, but I had a negative opinion of her after that. So I get the job, and we move. Nice apartments near the beach. Everything is well for a few months. Then a neighbor in his mid-40s moved in. I noticed she starts spending a lot of time with him. Gifts start to appear at our apartment. I go to his place on occasion, but I don't like him. I'd returned home from work to find her there, both of them stoned. At the time, I had no strong suspicions. I came over one day after a party they were having, which I had to skip since they were using marijuana and I didn't want to fail a drug test, and found her naked and asleep in his bed. I'm a Xanax. She is certain that she'd done nothing wrong. When she wakes up the next day, I worry a little and tell her I no longer trust her. Later, I read her notebook, in which she freely admits to having an affair with him on multiple occasions. Today is the worst day of my life. She admits to having affairs with him and this 19-year-old ghetto jerk who sometimes hangs around there. I tell her I'm considering divorce, but haven't decided if I want to forgive her. Things kind of return to normal, and I tell her she can't hang out with this guy by herself anymore. She does it nevertheless, and the same thing happens again, and I find her naked in his bed under the same settings. I worry once again and tell her she can't hang out with him anymore. She still does, but then something unusual happens, and this guy, also 19, stops trusting her and speaking with her. They both accuse her of bizarre things that I'm certain she didn't do, but I'm not interested in resolving that. As a result, everything returns to normal. We get to know new folks, good ones at that. As a result, everything returns to normal. We get to know new folks, good ones that aren't terrible. She says she did those other things because she has a lot of cravings that I can't satisfy 3 times a day. She establishes an online dating profile and immediately receives a flood of messages. She leaves her computer open, and I see she's made arrangements to meet with odd online individuals while I'm gone. One of these is most likely happening right now. One is set for today at 7 p.m. She has no clue who I am. She also claims to have had intercourse with a lot more guys than I previously knew about in her talks on the dating site, some of whom she had intercourse with pretty recently. As a consequence, I'm going to have to divorce her. Obviously. I can't believe I put up with it for so long as I type this. I really felt that by giving her second chances, I was doing her a favor. I know what some of you are thinking. She'll seek alimony. In fact, I doubt she will. She said that she does not and considers it unfair. She is more impulsive than deliberate. As a result, I expect to be able to file for divorce soon. We reside in Maryland, therefore we can't get a no-fault divorce until we've been here a year, which we haven't done. Otherwise, I'll need a witness to validate the divorce reasons. If it's legal, I may be able to convince her to do it. She may be aware of it. In addition, I have her handwriting in which she confesses what she did. I'm not sure whether it qualifies.